The foundations of our society are shaky, and the fact that entire generations are about to find out that they will never be able to retire comfortably is going to change our labor market, our collective mindset, and our economy, and rip apart the fabric that holds everything together in our country. A broken retirement system means that we're losing one of the most important cornerstones of the American dream. Today, over 50% of Americans have zero money saved for their retirement years, including almost 30% of older Americans that'll soon reach retirement age. Although some can blame the retirement crisis on workers' lack of savings, the reality is that for the vast majority of workers in the U.S., it is getting impossible to afford housing, to afford utilities, to afford food, cars, fuel, monthly bills, healthcare, and education, and still have money to put aside for the future. If you knew that all of the years that you dedicated to work wouldn't lead you to a path of home ownership, better living conditions, and retirement by the time you got old, how would that make you feel? Imagine when millions of Americans start waking up to this too. Analysts say this crisis may wreck the institutions that our nation is built upon, and it will be felt by each and every one of us. In this video, we're going to investigate a new study that predicts that a retirement uprising is on the cards for the U.S., as both private and public retirement arrangements fall to pieces by the end of the decade. Entire societies have risen and fallen because populations have shared a common mindset. While a common mindset of growth and prosperity led to some of the most extraordinary developments in human history, common thoughts of discontent, frustration, distrust, and rage have destroyed empires and changed the course of civilization. In the U.S., we were taught to believe that we were all included in the American dream. We watched our grandparents' journey of building wealth through decades of hard work, which allowed them to retire comfortably and enjoy their golden years after so much dedication. We believed that if we followed the same path, we would end up in the same situation. But the truth is that we won't. And the younger generations are even farther from ever reaching that level of financial security. American workers have built this country and made our economy run every single hour of every single day. Today they work harder than ever, but still they can't afford the rising cost of living with wages that never adjust to inflation levels. Since the 1970s, the average American has seen the value of a dollar plummet by 177%. And that's according to data compiled by the Minneapolis Fed. Meanwhile, the cost of living rose by 338% during that same span, and the average hourly wage of U.S. workers only increased by 76%. The jobs executed by our grandparents and great-grandparents no longer exist. Those jobs have been shipped to overseas markets, where big corporations can exploit cheap labor to hoard billionaire profits. The wealth that would be otherwise distributed throughout the American society via wages of U.S. workers employed in our domestic industries remained concentrated in the top. As corporation leaders move their operations to countries where they can pay workers starvation wages, Americans have been competing for an increasingly smaller pool of good-paying jobs. And over the decades, each generation has gotten poorer and had fewer chances of building wealth. Without salaries that support a decent lifestyle and allow people to save for their future, Americans' financial health has greatly deteriorated over the past 5 decades. And a retirement crisis that's been in the making since the 1980s has finally erupted. Now, millions of people are reaching retirement with not enough or no money at all. Both private and public retirement plans are failing to provide adequate help. And younger generations, which were the main catalyst of the Great Resignation movement that led 47 million people to voluntarily quit their jobs in 2021, are becoming aware of the fact that they may not achieve financial safety during their working lives. And they are getting furious. A retirement rebellion is brewing. That is what a study conducted by REIT in partnership with 55 Redefined is warning. Citing data released by personal finance site Credit Karma, analysts estimate that for the average U.S. worker today retiring with $1 million in savings, they would have to work for 108 years, saving at least 21% of their after-tax income and having a balanced portfolio of secure investments. In other words, for millions of Americans earning $69,717 a year or less, the idea of a comfortable retirement where healthcare costs and living expenses are covered is out of their reach. According to the National Institute on Retirement Security, half of all working-age individuals in America, which represent 103.6 million individuals, do not own assets in retirement accounts. Of those, 27% of Americans age 55 or more have no money saved for retirement. At the same time, 25% of Generation X responders said they haven't set aside anything for their later years. For those aging Americans who do have retirement accounts, persistent inflation has thwarted their plans, worsening the $7 trillion retirement savings shortfall. Among baby boomers who are employed and saving for retirement, 17% said they've decreased their contributions to their retirement accounts as a result of inflation. Another 5% of respondents aged 59 and older said they can't afford to contribute to their retirement account at all. 38% of millennials say they have zero or negative net worth, meaning they have more debts than assets. For Generation Z, more than 41% of respondents said their net worth is $0 or less. When all working-age individuals are included, not just individuals with retirement accounts, the median retirement account balance is $0 among all working individuals. Even among workers who've accumulated savings in retirement accounts, the typical worker had a modest account balance of $40,000. Furthermore, 68.3% of individuals aged 55 to 64 have retirement savings equal to less than 1 times their annual income, which is far below what they'll need to maintain their standard of living over their expected years in retirement. Even after counting an individual's entire net worth, a generous measure of retirement savings, 3/4 or 76.7% of Americans, fall short of conservative retirement savings targets for their age and income based on working until age 67. Due to a long-term trend toward income and wealth inequality that only worsened during the recent economic recovery, a large majority of the bottom half of Americans cannot meet even a substantially reduced savings target. That is particularly true for younger generations working in low-paid jobs. In fact, the study argues that Generation Z is likely to orchestrate the FIRE movement, which can be defined as a massive upheaval in the labor market that'll see younger workers stepping back from their jobs en masse, in protest to anemic wage growth in an era of ballooning costs for basic goods and services. The chaotic demonstrations we're now witnessing in France are just a hint of what may lie ahead for the United States, they say. Over the past 2.5 months, millions of people in France have taken to the streets to protest against Emmanuel Macron's push to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. The analysts argue that similar insurrections could arise in the United States when Social Security goes bankrupt.